We are on our Tuesday tea time, and it's almost the winter solstice.
Yeah.
So I thought I might read a couple of winter solstice poems and then give us some sitting time. And if there's time and interest, I went to Spirit Rock Monday Night Sit last night with Jack Cornfield, and he gave a good half an hour talk. And so maybe I'll play some of it because I recorded it from the Zoom meeting to my phone. So it's not the best recording, but we can hear how he acknowledges the solstice and hear some of his stories. He's been on a role, I think, to sort of make a legacy of all of his storytelling. So there's various ways to join Jack and Spirit Rock for different stories of his life through his Dharma progression. But in this, he was just acknowledging the solstice. So, but for now, here we are. It's hard to believe it's December 19th, 2023. I mean, wow. So welcome, as always, to our beautiful Tuesday sitting time together. Our different ages and ethnicities and cultural heritage and religious background and our socioeconomic differences and our abilities, our sexual orientation, and our gender identity as we study and practice for the benefit of all beings, and recognizing the suffering that's caused by biases and prejudices and systems of power and privilege on the oppressed groupings of people that I mentioned, and just aspiring to do no harm. And that starts with us, aspiring to do no harm within our own hearts and minds, and how we see we often harm ourselves so subtly without really noticing it. But in that aspiration, we can realize that our liberation is interconnected with the liberation of all. So I think I'll just start by reading two poems. You know, the winter solstice is the time of the shortest day and the longest night of the year, and the sun is at its weakest and darkness pervades the world. But well, at least the northern hemisphere, but it is also the time that the sun begins to return its strength and growing brighter and more powerful until it reaches the apex in the summer. So while it is the beginning of our winter, it is the last of the dark days. But this is from Emily Brontë. The night is darkening round me. The wild winds coldly blow. But a tyrant spell has bound me, and I cannot go. The giant trees are bending their bare boughs, weighted with snow, and the storm is fast descending, and yet I cannot go. Clouds beyond clouds above me, wastes below beyond wastes below, but nothing drearer can move me. I will not, cannot go. And Wendell Berry says, to go in the dark with a light is to know the light. To know the dark, go dark. Go without sight, and find that the dark too blooms and sings, and is traveled by dark feet and dark wings. And as we approach these days of winter in the northern hemisphere, we have views of snow-capped mountains far away, icy tree branches if you go to Mount Hood and beyond, and the cooling scent of cedar and spruce and pine we can smell within our city blocks. It's all beautiful. at least when it's viewed behind a window, comfortably sitting in the warmth of my home. But these days of less sunlight are opportunities for more contemplative times, looking deeply to see what can only be seen in the dark. And I know sometimes the shortness of the days often leaves some of us feeling dark and down and unmotivated. And it's easy for sadness to creep in through the winter. Sometimes it almost seems like it's never going to end, like the sun isn't going to come up again. But the people in the Southern Hemisphere can tell us that it does return. So I know as oftentimes when it's dark outside, we can notice for ourselves that even through this kind of inner darkness can happen. It can happen at any time of the year, but winter is the season that's most likely to come about. And it can often be challenging to many of us. But this year, may we celebrate the darkest day, which comes in 2 days on Thursday. And may we appreciate the opportunity that winter has brought us. And when summer comes, we'll celebrate the longest day and the impending end of the light. But may we run with open arms into the embrace of darkness, because we know its time here is also limited. And that all it offers is love and light, even in the dark. The Dharma practice helps us become more resilient, whether it's the continued complex ramifications of the pandemic, and sometimes relationships have difficulties, and there's days that we're grumpy in the depths of winter. But when we're resilient, we know on a deep level of being that it's just a matter of time until it passes, and this is not really all that bad most times. It's sort of like, I've mentioned it before, probably last winter, I think of it as wearing anti-quicksand boots. And so we want to cultivate spiritual resilience. Part of that is taking refuge in the Buddha, in the Dhamma, in the Sangha, finding safety and respite in the possibility of awakening, the actual practice, and the community of kindred spirits. And by taking refuge, we touch into the heart. We trust that the refuges will hold us and protect us from sinking. It's a deep trust. And so we pay homage to the Buddha, to those enlightened beings that discovered true freedom from suffering, and the Dhamma, the teachings that were brought down through the 2,600 years since the Buddha's time, and the Sangha, the many groups of lay people, monks and nuns, all the way down to our Tuesday tea time group. Sangha is there to support each other. And as we sometimes face our internal fears, we have this thought of winter solstice, of lighting candles or burning our fears and standing by our imaginary raging bonfires. I'm sure we've all stood by a raging bonfire somewhere along the line, but now it might be imaginary. Standing by that bonfire, urging the lightness closer to us and creating our own light through fire or candles or singing or hugging someone. Knowing that we have these tears of sweetness and hope, tears of knowing we can make it through the darkness again. And as we sit in that appreciation of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and the support of community, although the Buddha's instructions upon his death were, "Be a lamp unto yourself," we have the lamp of the Dharma within us. And it doesn't go out once it's been lit. The Dharma is always there. As we hold ourselves in kindness and gentleness, using whatever you use when you first begin your meditation, of focusing on the breath of the nostrils or the diaphragm, or maybe allowing the breath to go through the entire body. We might fill the body with the breath, or feel the body of the breath, the beginning, middle, and end of the breath, as a way of starting an anchor, a place to return to when we get a little too lost in thought. Relaxing the body, settling on the chair. Relaxing behind the eyes and the face, the neck, the jaw. letting relaxation flow through the neck and shoulders, down the spine, through the back muscles, feeling our buttocks on the chair, feeling our feet on the floor, embodied awareness of what's happening right now. Not too complicated, just being present with what's arising in this moment. We might notice things arising in our bodies somewhere as pleasant or unpleasant. We might be reminded of repetitive thought patterns. We can just see them for what they are, as thoughts, or thoughts about a certain subject if they keep repeating themselves. And that's okay. Thinking happens. Sensations happen. Awareness happens at each of the sense doors. And we want mindfulness and awareness to be present to just what is happening now. This is the way it is right now. Returning again to the breath, to what's happening in the present moment when the mind wanders or gets sleepy and dull or gets caught up in excessive thinking. We can just begin again at the anchor of our breath at the nostrils or the belly, or waking up at any moment when we are aware of what's happening, noticing if it's pleasant or unpleasant. Having continuity of awareness in the practice of mindfulness can happen under whatever arises in the heart and mind. We're just aware. We see it. We may know that it's skillful and leads toward our release from suffering. We may notice that it's not so skillful and causes us more contraction in the mind. We can see when to let go and when to angle more toward what seems to be cultivating the heart and mind of kindness and compassion, of the right amount of energy and confidence or faith, wisdom and mindfulness. And just resting at ease, being at ease. May I have ease and well-being. Remembering that we can return to the breath at any time. Or the touch point of the buttocks on the cushion to anchor our practice in the body. And begin again. holding everything as it arises, whatever arises in the heart and mind. Being gentle with ourselves, being open to what arises. And in this last moment or two of this part of our practice, as we hold ourselves in kindness and gentleness, I'd like to remind you of a poem that I've read before from Julia McCullum, and it's from Wild Women's Sisterhood, and I'd like to remind us as we come to a closure in this part of our sitting practice of this poem from Julia McCullum called Wild Women's Sisterhood. I release my parents from the feeling that they have failed me. I release my children from the need to make me proud so that they can write their own ways according to their hearts. I release my partner from the obligation to make me feel complete. I lack nothing in myself. I learn with all the beings that surround me through all time. I thank my grandparents and ancestors who met so that today I breathe life, and I release them from the faults of the past and from the wishes they did not fulfill, aware that they did the best they could to resolve their situations within the consciousness they had at that moment. I honor them. I love them. I recognize their innocence. I bear my soul before their eyes, and that is why they know that I do not hide or owe anything more than being faithful to myself and my own existence, walking with the wisdom of the heart. I am aware that I am fulfilling my life project, free of visible and invisible family loyalties that may disturb my peace and my happiness, which are my greatest responsibilities. I renounce the role of savior, of being the one who unites or who fulfills the expectations of others. And learning through love, I bless my essence and my way of expressing, although there may be someone who cannot understand me. I understand myself because only I lived and experienced my story. Because I know myself, I know who I am, what I feel, what I do, and why I do it. I honor the divinity in me and in you. I respect and approve. We are free. Those are some good things to think about and to release as we make our way into this winter solstice time. Releasing and letting go, and being happy that our grandparents and ancestors met, that we breathe life, and releasing them from the faults of the past and from wishes they didn't fulfill, being aware that they did the best they could to resolve their situations within the consciousness they had at that moment. And in learning through love, through kindness, through compassion, we can hold ourselves in that essence. And we can let that essence that we nurture flow from our hearts to others. even while people are going through extreme suffering. There are others who are in joy, while some are enlightened and some are unenlightened. All these beings wish to be happy. And we nurture this within our hearts as holding a space of openness for all beings to be released from suffering. And by understanding this, by understanding that suffering is due to craving and clinging and the difficulty of letting go and being with things as the way they are. But may all beings everywhere be free from harm, safe and protected, and have ease and well-being. Anicca vata sankhara, upadavaya domino, upakitava merochanti, te samvapasamo sukho. All conditioned things arise and pass away. Seeing this clearly brings the greatest happiness, which is peace. And as Susan Cooper says in The Shortest Day, so the shortest day came, and the year died, and everywhere down the centuries of the snow-white world came people singing, dancing, to drive the dark away. They lighted candles in the winter trees. They hung their homes with evergreen. They burned beseeching fires all night long to keep the year alive. And when the New Year's sunshine blazed awake, they shouted, reveling. Through all the frosty ages, you can hear them echoing behind us. Listen. As the long echoes sing the same delight, this shortest day, as promise wakens in the sleeping land. They carol, feast, give thanks, and dearly love their friends, and hope for peace, and so do we, here, now, this year and every year. Thank you for your practice. May we really realize directly the merit of this practice and that it has benefit to all beings. And as we look...
The poet who